start to your week and wrap to your year. Guys, we're about to be done with 2020. Thank God, right? So, last show of the year. Want to thank each and every one of you guys for being a part of the show. And let's see what we can do in 2021. So, what do we got going on here? Let's see. Is this thing working? I'll tell you what. Hang on. Let me try one thing real quick. Having some technical difficulties here. Hang on. Hang on here, dadgummit. There we go. Yeah, that's better. All right, so hope everybody's having a fantastic start to your week. Trying to get ready. Boosted Hemi saying it's working. I like it. So what's the latest? What's been going on? Well, really, honestly, not a whole lot. This schizophrenic weather that we've been having lately here in Texas, no surprise there, right? But anyway, the crazy weather has had everything a little bit up in the air. So Chris is in, CFL's in. What's up, brother? Got the arm flex. I like it. So basically, getting reliable data on the car, that's already basically been done, but the track won't be open until the 8th of January, basically the day before the track rental. Right. So trying to get any last minute testing or data logging or anything like that, pretty much out the window, primarily looking at launch, looking at timing at launch, looking at what the car is going to act like, all of these things that I'm looking at, trying to get the car out of the hole just a little bit better to capture just a little bit more ET on the backside of that track. And I tell you what, it is all in the launch. You start messing with drag racing and it's hysterical, man. I will go in and I will dissect my tune trying to find just this little bitty tiny sliver of ET down there. It's enough to drive me crazy. But that being said, definitely is fun, makes it a challenge, but you can't do that on the street, primarily because, well, the car won't hook on the street. So there's that. And having a set of tires that would do any, justice to the term traction, well, those really don't exist. They don't last too long when you start playing with them. In no prep conditions, right? So have to wait until the drag strip, which is better anyway. I mean, it's legal and all, not to mention the fact that it's a lot easier on the tires. So those things get expensive. But that's the latest with that thing. Can't really do anything with it, so that's basically what we're stuck with. Let's see. Yeah, CFL is in. Clutched is in, saying good evening. John Jones saying, what's happening, brother? What's happening, man? White Knuckle saying, what's up, B? Got the arm flex and the thumbs up. I like it. Seeing you were doing some touch-up on X's tune. That is right. Doing a little bit of, just tiptoeing through the tulips on his tune. Predictive shift is kind of a weird thing. And what I was doing is I was going in and making sure that I could capture the 1-2 shift a little bit better for his car. And I know that we pulled basically the same ET, but in significantly higher DA out of that car. So big improvement there. And this is one of those things where you go, well, the car ran the same number. Yeah, this is where density altitude plays a humongous role in how that car, what that number really means, to be honest with you. So there's that to consider in all of this. And the car did really well. But when you're playing with horsepower numbers like that, it's, and I'm working with a tune that, is a fairly advanced tune in that car. My job there is just to try to make small incremental changes to get the car to act right, to launch right, to do basically to get a number out of that car. And I basically did it. Again, a lot of it has to do with torque management settings, making sure that you're data logging the right parameters. All of that comes into play. And without the help of Alex Pikes, with data logging configurations and things like that, I'd never be able to do this. But it helps when you get to learn from one of the best around. So anyway, my job is to try to get Paul's car Get it a little bit more consistent out of the hole. Make sure that the car is performing at its best when it's at the drag strip. So that's what we're doing. A lot of this has to do, and this is the funny thing, questions will come up about tuning. It's weird because engine tuning is such a small thing. It's actually super easy to tune on the engine side when you start comparing that with transmission tuning. You would think that the transmission tune is, when you look at the transmission tune, the complexity and everything that's going on in that thing, and every one of those parameters is important, you would be surprised how much more, or how much seemingly more complicated the transmission tuning is than actual engine tuning. Engine's pretty easy. Timing, fuel, you got some parameters that you're looking for, like short-term fuel trims, making sure that they're good. Looking at pulse width and injector duty cycle, making sure that that's not out of range. Fuel timing, and that's basically it, bro. I mean, you got a little bit of cam sweep here and there, but, for stock stuff, not a big deal. But when you get into transmission tuning, it's a whole different ball game, and we're talking, engine tuning is what you learn how to do. Transmission tuning is like master class level stuff. So, and there's always new PIDs that are coming out that, computers are getting more and more dissected, and that's allowing for more and more tunability. And there's some amazing stuff, by the way, in even the latest beta software from HP tuners. And it's fun to see some of the quirks, the differences between a 2015 and 2016 and a 2017 and up. And what's interesting is that I can just pick around a little bit in the tune, and you'll find little tattletales about what is a 2015 or a 16 Hellcat versus 17 and up cars. Or little tattletales between indifferences really between a Red Eye and a Demon, which are in essence the same tune. For the 93 octane side of things, or I should say 91 octane side of things. But it's interesting to see the differences there. It's like, you look at the Hellcat, some of the torque parameters, and you go, oh, should I go that aggressive? And then you look at a Demon or a Red Eye file, operating system file, and you go, oh, yeah, throw the kitchen sink at it. So anyway, just, some behind the scenes stuff with that. Mark Corleone. Dr. Davis saying, B Mason, my man, how you doing tonight? Doing good, man. Clutch asking, meth injection kit versus 85 for the 6.4. Nope. And look, here's the thing. E85 works with high compression, okay? Or boost, which is in essence adding atmospheres, compression ratio, so to speak, to your engine. That's where 85 comes into play. Now, the weird thing about the Hemi is that the intake itself, in terms of air volume, it's not helping the cause, because to get the same amount of power from E85 to gasoline takes 30% more E85. If you have 30% more liquid taking up space, that is in essence displacing oxygen, which you need to burn this 30% more fuel. The point here is the intake won't flow enough really to make E85 a viable choice. Now, E85 does help torque down low, and that's where E85 does a great job. In fact, E85 stock cam and a set of long tube headers on Quick Brick's car, perfect example, made a ton of torque down low. It just didn't really make any more power up top. So you just don't see these numbers. Meth injection? No, don't. There's no real reason for it. Primarily, look, let's circle this back a little bit. First of all, E85 meth injection, if you want to call it the same thing, you can. But here's the thing. The intake manifold was never designed to flow fluid in terms of a liquid. its fluid that it's designed to flow is actually air. And from an MDE, mechanical design engineering perspective, introducing a fluid into that intake manifold will create imbalances in terms of which cylinders are getting the lion's share of that particular fluid. Give you a perfect example of this. This is a real jackleg example, but whenever I port manifolds, I've got, and if you haven't seen it, this amazing, it's stupid. Anyway, that leaf blower that I got, the Ryobi cordless, that's what I use to blow out the runners. And it's interesting when you hook the thing up, because it's got an outlet about this big around. It's almost identical to the size that I port those manifolds to. Number 1 and number 2, number 7 and number 8. And this is on I'm just using a car intake. I'm just picking on the car here. Those intakes, you'll blow air out through those runners, and then the middle ones really don't get any real airflow. I'll actually go and block the outside runners off, 1, 2, 7, and 8. And then you'll see the pressure differential come back, and it'll start blowing through the center cylinders. A lot of that has to do with how that intake is shaped. But if you notice, it will also do the same thing on the 6.4 manifolds. It's just the way that it works. So the point here is, no, it's not the same, but it's interesting that it is, all these runners are utilizing a common plenum, and air is coming into this manifold, obviously from the same place, but the flow out of the runners is wildly different. So when you start to introduce a fluid, granted, this is not a free-flowing environment, but the point is still there. You'll get distribution issues. So you may have 7 and 8 get a ton of meth injection. 3, 4, 6, and 5 might not get any. And the list, you can see where this goes. 1 and 2 get a lot, or whatever the case is, or get none at all. So the problem with that comes when you're looking at your air-fuel ratio, and you look at the air-fuel ratio. Let's say you're using a standalone wideband. You go, oh, this looks great. Well, no, it doesn't, because if you've set the tune up specifically and you're going real aggressive with timing in that instance, well, number one, you might even start seeing this with the knock sensors, this weird, you'll get this intermittent just freak out with the knock sensors. Guys go in and wipe all that stuff out anyway, right? But what ends up happening is that you'll get, let's say, a good average number of AFR, but number 7 cylinder could be at 10-1, and number 1 cylinder could be at 14.3-1. You see what I'm saying? So your spread is going to be a lot more wild when you start to introduce, in many cases, when you start to introduce a fluid into the intake manifold. Now, I am a big, I don't like any kind of water meth injection on the Hellcats. It just makes a complete mess of everything. I know some guys like to use it. More power to you, but it's not my cup of tea for pulling power out of one of those cars. You just don't really need it. Now, that being said, I have seen meth injection kits that are direct port for the 6.4s. I think Nitrous Works makes one. Saw that at the track and thought that was really trick, because that is actually how water meth was intentionally designed, or initially designed about 100 years ago for aircraft engines, utilizing just poor fuel quality with 2-stage superchargers. So anyway, I hope that makes some sense to you, but unless it's direct port, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. There's other ways to get power. Doctor was saying the Hellcat we did with the Tomcat cam. I was trying to get dialed in for the most part on the street before I owned a dyno. We were hitting it at 100 miles an hour and spinning hard, wait for the track. No kidding. And see, that's the thing, or rent dyno time. The problem is with a lot of these cars, 6.4s are known for this too. It's not just a Hellcat thing. Guys will try to get data on the cars and they just spin the tires. And that, you have to abort the run at that point. And the other side to that is, well, to be honest, you've unloaded the car. The data is at that point basically useless. So good point on that. Not to mention Dr. Diff saying not worth the risk. I'm a firm believer of E85 because meth can be a bad mix relying on it. Yeah, that's true. James Arrington, transmission tune equals left foot, right hand. Speaking of which, I have not ordered the clutch, the pressure, or the clutch, the clutch kit, or the flywheel or the pilot bearing, any of that for the Mustang yet. I've got to have time to get these projects rolling, and Sierra is on deck. She is getting ready to go on the main stage, hopefully here pretty soon. If the weather cooperates, Dr. Diff, it might be this weekend, so I will keep you in the loop, let you know what's going on with that. Because I got to call you. There's a couple of things that we still need to get for it. Basically, they're super easy. It's a mechanical fuel block-off plate, the gasket that goes along with it, and, well, the pump, and that's pretty much it. So, anyway, good point there, James. Sean, thank you very much. Saying, fingers crossed for January 9th. Looks like you're going to need a break to get the DA down where you need it. Mini hurricane last year helped, yeah. But thank you very much. I appreciate the contribution to the cause, brother. Yeah, you know what? This is Southeast Texas, man. It does not matter what the weather report says right now. I have had weather reports 2 weeks out and even a week out that have said it's going to be a thunderstorm, and it didn't rain at all. So we'll see. The bailout date is January. I think it's January 23rd is our bailout date. So I'll be posting some things up on that. Slash is saying, can you mention to my wife, Anna, that I'm sorry for not getting the 392 Durango. She got the 6-cylinder. That's all right. It's a transportation appliance, man. I understand completely. Priorities, bro. That just means there's more money for mods, right? Let's see. But thank you all very much. I appreciate the contribution, guys. Dr. Diff saying, I actually prefer transmission tuning. It's a bit harder, but has much better result. Always update your beta, and if it doesn't have a PID, just ask HP tuners to add it. Far better than anything else. Very true on that. Let's see. Oh, Dr. Diff saying, depending on engine tune, anyway, get the engine right, and then let the trans eat. Always ask the customer on what they want, and typically the trans will get it there. So this is the big thing with transmission tuning. Some of it is objective. In other words, when you're looking at a 392 car, and this is somebody that takes the car to the drag strip, there are certain things that you have to change in that tune, or that car may not work properly on the drag strip. Data logging and data logging at the drag strip are essential. Having very good track prep helps. Having a drag pack is almost considered mandatory to get the data that you need and to have that data be as consistent as possible. And you really do need the data to be all but lab conditions. And I used to joke about this whenever I would take a car to the drag strip. Mine, customers, could be friends, could be anybody's. I always data logged them, and I might as well have been wearing a white lab coat. It's funny. At this stage of the game, the question is it still fun? Yeah, it's a riot, but once you start dabbling in the nuances of this tuning thing and really what makes this clock work, so to speak, you develop this completely different and new and you can appreciation, and you can see things a little bit differently. So, for guys that, go, oh, it's this tuning thing, it's magic or whatever. There is some pretty cool stuff behind it. But the reality is that it's just it's just a more sophisticated appreciation that I have for these modern cars than I would have ever had without the knowledge that I was able to get from this. So just kind of some cool stuff that goes along with this whole tuning thing. Some progress, and my left foot is my transmission tuner. Yeah. Johnny's saying the 5.0 Coyote and the 392 both flow great with the heads. Why does E85 work better with the Coyote? Higher compression for one. Two, it's got a better intake manifold for its displacement. Think of it like this. The Coyote intake manifold flows more than the 392 intake manifold, and it does so on an engine that is significantly smaller. So you're not at a disadvantage introducing fuel into that intake tract, or, you know, basically from the intake tract into the cylinder. You're not at a disadvantage because those heads flow a ton. The engine is small or smaller, I should say. And again, the flow of that intake, the thing is just designed to flow big RPM. And that is something that will, just by definition, help with an E85 tune, because you need big airflow to be able to work with the extra fuel that's going in those cylinders. The other thing is that you can take advantage of the fact that you can control each cam individually. It's another thing that helps a lot. So between those two natures of those of that platform, they do pick up a little bit more than something that is really, quite frankly, designed to be run on gasoline. And frankly, it's the 392 is designed to work extremely well with, and it does so, mind you, to work very, very well with a very heavy car for what it is trying to do, by the way. So again, that's just, you know, some of the reasons behind why the Coyote will respond to E85 and the 392. I'm not saying it doesn't respond. I'm just saying that peak horsepower may not be changed too much. But peak torque, and especially tip-in torque, will be improved. The other thing too is, strangely enough, the Hemis just really don't respond to timing the way that you can make a Coyote respond to timing. A lot of that has to do with camshaft profile and basically cam manipulation. But the bottom line is this. When you're tuning with the 85 on a 392, you'd be surprised how close to the gasoline tune that timing value really is. I've had, well, it was Quick Break's Charger. I had his car on the dyno, and I was throwing timing at it, you know, 2 degrees at a time. In fact, I'd throw timing at it, make a hit, nothing. Car's cooling off on the dyno. I would go in, throw a little bit more timing at it, let it cool off, make another hit. Nothing. And what was weird is that sometimes some cars and some combinations, you'll get this, from your point of view, the power curve will come up, and then you keep adding timing, and it really doesn't do anything. It'll level off. And then you, no more. And then you add a little bit more timing, and it goes beep, and it comes right back up. It's kind of a weird thing. I mean, I basically quit trying to throw timing at it after I'd thrown like 6 degrees of timing at the thing, and it just didn't feel it. So, yeah, that'll give you an idea, you know, when you're looking at these Mopars and you're looking at possibly going to E85, just know that you're not doing this for horsepower. You're primarily doing it for torque, throttle response, getting the thing out of the hole. And I highly recommend a set of long tube headers to go along with it, because contrary to popular belief, and even I've said this, long tube headers are worthless. They are, but if you're going to put E85 in the car and you know it's going to help you make torque down low, and I haven't really ever seen it make really any horsepower out the back end, go ahead and throw the long tubes on it and give yourself a little bit more drivability and torque down low to go along with it as well. You know, a set of 1 7/8 headers may only pick up, I don't know, 5 horsepower, 6 horsepower realistically, but the extra torque that you make, the 8 or 10 or 12 foot-pounds of torque that you can make on average down low will make up for it quite a bit. And that, by the way, translates into drivability, the snappiness of the throttle. So that would be my suggestion. Oh, James is saying amen, and that's why nitrous placed behind the throttle body is a bad idea. So what he's talking about is, I was just talking about the distribution issue with some of these modern intake manifolds. So, yep, that's exactly what I was alluding to. Slash saying, sup, Slash. White Knuckles saying, plate behind the throttle body is better than a nozzle in front of it. Well, yeah, unless you have a solenoid hang open or a solenoid not open and you're just fogging the living. Well, either way, it would still do it. Anyway, I have seen weird stuff with nitrous. Behind the throttle body is technically better for flow. You never want a throttle blade in front of anything that you're spraying. But that being said, I've seen some weird stuff happen with nitrous kits. So, but you do this stuff long enough, this stuff will happen. Besides, I'm a bigger fan of just running direct port anyway, and call it good at that point. So, and that's not only past the throttle body, that's past the plenum into the runners, sitting basically right on top of your fuel injector. So, let's see. But yes, in terms of flow, it is better-ish. Here's the only other thing. I mean, again, you're still going to be up against the distribution question. So you just got to be careful with that. And it's the distribution issue that stings guys worse than actually the actual nitrous itself. And this is where guys also, by the way, where sometimes this issue can come up with supercharging. And again, unless you've got pyrometers, which is just a fancy, SAT word that means temperature gauge on every cylinder, unless you've got a pyrometer on every cylinder and you're monitoring exhaust gas temperatures on every cylinder and monitoring air fuel ratio on every single cylinder, it's going to be real tough to get it spot on and just right anyway. So not saying that the kits are fine. You can force feed these things air. It's not a big deal. But just know that whenever you do force feed them, it's better to err on the side of caution and run them fat. That way, if you do have a weird distribution issue, at least you've got the fuel thing covered. It's kind of a Band-Aid, but it's the best we have to work with. And besides, horsepower doesn't really get all that. I mean, it does, don't get me wrong, but the horsepower doesn't really get stung that much by air fuel ratio. A 10.9 to 1 versus 12.2 on a supercharged car is not that big of a difference in power. But 2 or 3 degrees of timing is a major difference in power. It could be anyway. So just know that coming into it. If you're worried about AFRs and you read all this stuff about air fuel ratios and this is the way it should be, and don't get too worked up over that kind of stuff. You're better to be fat under wide open throttle in high load conditions up to a point. Being too fat though can cause some problems though. And this is where guys go, fat and happy, it's better to be fat. Sort of. See, the problem with fat is that being fat can raise your exhaust gas temperatures, or combustion chamber temperatures, I should say, which can be an issue. It's basically how you tulip an exhaust valve is by running it too fat. A lean condition will actually give you a lower EGT, believe it or not. So you've got more air in there than fuel. The issue there would be potentially pinging, but realistically that's going to be knocked, but that's in many cases more an issue with timing than it is with AFR. There's a lot that goes into this stuff, and you got to be thinking on your toes when you're messing with these things as well. So just having that general knowledge of how that engine works is going to help you a ton. Anyway, getting all kinds of deep into that stuff. Let's see. BB, what's up, man? BB78 saying the professor has given us knowledge. Thank you. He said, what's the difference between the NAG 1 and the 6.1 and the 6.4 cars? I don't think there is a difference. What torque would you recommend needing to upgrade on the 6.1? Guys, hit that like. Yeah, definitely hit the like, guys. Helps a ton when y'all do. It's something with YouTube algorithms, man. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I can tell you that it does help me a ton. But the Nag 1 difference between 6.1 and a 6.4, I don't think they made any running line differences. In fact, if there is a difference, it may be in the clutches, but it would just be it would be like a running line update. It wouldn't really be any difference with how the thing bolts to anything. I mean, Nag 1's a Nag 1. Good transmission, by the way. In fact, I'll go so far as to say this. A lot of guys, here's the funny thing. A lot of guys will, you know, they look down on the Nag 1 for some reason. You know, I don't get it, because the Nag 1. So let me rewind real quick for you. When I was doing all the transmission tuning in my Lightning, I had that thing. I should have never gotten rid of that truck. I had that thing perfect. I had probably 55 to 60. I know the number keeps going up. I know I had at least, literally though, over 50 revisions in that tune, just in transmission tuning. And I got that thing to where I loved it. It was absolutely perfect. And I'll never forget, it was 2000, had to at least been 10 or 11 years ago. I went and test drove a 5.7 Signature Series Challenger. And y'all know the story with this, but I had fallen in love with an SRT8. And I mean, I really like this car a lot. And it was lowered, CCW wheels, black with gray stripes. I thought that was the absolute best looking car I'd ever laid eyes on. And so I had found a Signature Series 5.7 car, because I really liked the 5.7. And I was a little bit on the broke side at the time, so that was about the most I could afford. I couldn't afford the SRT8, but the 5.7 was pretty peppy. But one of the things that I noticed about the Nag 1 is just how good the transmission tune was in that car stock. And that was kind of a changeover point for me. I ended up not buying the car. Kind of a bummer. I kind of wish I would have. It's really pretty too. It was white with the red stripes, Signature Series. Really pretty car. But anyway, getting back to it, you know, the interesting thing is that the transmission in the Nag 1, again, it had kind of proven to me where this modern transmission tune, especially a factory tune, how far it had come. And I just, again, I knew this because I'd spent the last 2.5 months tinkering with my truck. So anyway, love the Nag 1. And by the way, that Nag 1 is backed up some heavy artillery on the E55 front. So just saying. Let's see. Blue String's asking, can you put a shifter out of an 8-speed? Oh, can you change it over to a dial shifter? You know what? You probably cannot, because well, maybe you could if you wanted to. The shifter itself, this is no joke, by the way. The shifter itself has its own module that goes along with it. So this is why, if you guys ever get a Barton shifter or something like that, when you take the whole thing apart, you actually put the old handle and everything else, you route that underneath that console assembly. And again, it's because it's got its own electronics that go along with it. It's not just linkage that goes to something else that tells the computer what to do. No, that shifter does a lot. I mean, it really doesn't do a lot. I mean, it puts the car in gear and takes it out of gear. Anyway, apparently it needed its own module. So I don't know if the dial also comes with its own module. I'm pretty sure it does. And then at that point, it would just be pinning out a connector to make that work. So it'd be tedious, but if you really wanted to do it, you could probably do it. Ken is asking, what about E85 with red eyes and demons since their superchargers run hotter? I like E85 in those conditions for a couple of reasons. One, it's just more boost. And again, like we were talking about earlier, E85 does really well in higher compression scenarios. In other words, the more compression that you have, read into that boost, it's the same thing, the better that E85 is going to be able to work for you. So yeah, in fact, if it were me, I would say that it would be fantastic if the red eye, because y'all know I'm not the biggest fan in the world of red eyes, or demons really for that matter, for a few reasons, but it would be really cool if as part of their operating system, they had a true E85 program, or if they had an E85 option, a flex fuel option, and one that didn't use the NOx sensors as the tattletale as far as what the fuel was that was in the car. If they had something more in tune with like the GM system where it has a sensor, then that car's complexion would change entirely, because the lower temperatures and all of that stuff don't get so wrapped up in that. There is some charge cooling, but where E85 comes into play is that there's simply just more mass there. There's just more fluid there to absorb any heat in the air. In other words, the charge, in this case, the air charge. So that can actually act as a secondary charge cooling effect, secondary to the bricks that are already there. So with that in mind, E85 would work better because it's more in its element, so to speak. Higher boost, higher discharge temperatures. Think about it. It's really kind of a double whammy positive for the E85. And of course, Dodge doesn't have that capability yet, or maybe ever. I don't know. The thing is that when you go into the operating system, and Dr. Diff will know exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this, there are so many parameters for alcohol content. There's so many parameters for E85. There is a separate operating system that you can import. And every time somebody has tried to make it work, it hasn't worked. Now, I've been told somebody's got this kit, somebody's got that, this works, this, whatever. The most sophisticated of all the ones that I had heard of was the Livernois kit. And this is one that was apparently working spectacularly for Trackhawks. Let me tell you how that worked out. Didn't work out too well for a customer that we had at the shop. In fact, it was basically a dumpster fire. It worked great for a while, but working great for a while isn't working. And now, let me just say this. When you start to modify that system, what ends up happening is you start inevitably, you're messing with NOx sensor sensitivities, because there's just more racket going on. You start spinning these things at higher RPMs, you start throwing more boost at it, what have you. That's where things get kind of weird. Well, this was one of their like 900 horsepower kits or 900 horsepower packages, however they want to market them. And one of the issues that had come up was the car, in this case, it was the Trackhawk, so car, truck, the vehicle. The Trackhawk, this thing, what happened was it had a big time hot start issue. And what I think Alex ended up doing was he just basically hollered calf rope on the whole thing and just tuned it without any of the flex fuel capability anymore, because the more you tried to wrestle with this flex fuel thing, the worse and worse that it got. And the weird thing about it is that the car kind of ended up learning around it or something, because again, the car would act fine. And then as time would go on, it would just get progressively worse and worse and worse. So anyway, Dodge needs to put a system in place that is a real flex fuel kit. In other words, you can flow or you can have whatever fuel is in the thing, from 100% ethanol to 100% gasoline and anything in between. If they had something like that, yes, I would be on board with it 100%, but it'd have to mimic what the GM kit does, because with the sensor, because without it, it just makes it a headache. And again, Sean, Slash, thank y'all very much, guys. I appreciate it. Shawnee's saying Shift Nation. Oh, I think I missed that too for Shift Nation. It's called a clutch delay valve removal and computer-aided gear selection removal. Those are some things in there that will help. in the tune. Sorry about that. Those are some things that will absolutely help. The shift delay valve, what that is, it's this little plastic flow reducer, for lack of a better way of putting it, that is in the actual hydraulic line for the clutch. And what ends up happening here is that it limits the volume of fluid going through the system, which can slow not only the disengagement of the clutch, which can actually make it almost feel like you're cavitating the fluid. It's if I can try to explain what that feels like, it's like there's this weird delay. And then if you're trying to shift really quickly, you go to take your foot off the clutch really quick and engage the clutch. What happens is the fluid just doesn't allow the clutch to slam back against that pressure plate. I'm sorry, that flywheel. The pressure plate just kind of eases in. It's almost like it's a controlled amount of slip. Manual guys don't like that. Manual guys want to be able to drive their car. And so for me, it's a kind of a hacky way of trying to make the car maybe a little bit easier to drive in traffic or something like that. Who wants to mess with that when you've got this performance car? Anyway, but those are some things that can help. Let's see. CFL James asks, does the 1320 have the same torque converter and overall tune to the transmission, or does it represent standard Scat Pack trans tune? Also, drag mode being the same as a Demon. So there are some differences with the 1320 converter. It will stall a little bit higher than the normal, the older at least, torque converters that were in the Scat Packs. I want to say, though, might be wrong about this, but I think that 18 and up all have that converter in them. Could be wrong, but my understanding is that they did make a switch to that spec of a converter, or something somewhat similar to it. But I have noticed that it will more easily stall than some of the older cars. So there's that. As far as, let's see, the tune itself, there are some different, somebody busted. There are some different parameters in the transmission, mainly for launch and for a launch mode, basically. But aside from that, there's not a whole lot different in that transmission tune. There's some changes, but not as many as you might think. And I love me some 1320. I'm hoping to get a read file on one here pretty soon just so I can play with it. Oh, Shawnee and Shift are hanging out. Yeah, that's skip shift stuff. CFL saying, same as Demon for above question. Oh, I think he's asking about the Demon trans tune versus the Hellcat trans tune. If that is the question, there's a lot different in the Demon and the Red Eye transmission tune versus the Hellcat transmission tune. Believe it or not, though, there are a lot of things that are kind of like running line improvements, if you will. The Hellcat protocol, it seems like it kind of stalled out somewhere around the 2017 model year. There's not a whole lot that had changed, and when you look at it, you can kind of see like there's some things in torque management, torque limiting. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. In fact, there's one, oh, what the hell is it? It is a transmission. Is it transmission? I think it's transmission based. Max torque value table. And right there in the middle, in fact, if you were to look at this thing, it would be like where the meat is in a hamburger, but it'd be like if the meat was only about that wide in a burger. But there's a string of torque limiters for fifth gear that Red Eyes and Demons just don't have. And it's for fifth gear in a weird spot. And it was actually, I found it in the newest beta version, and it kind of solved a problem that I had with my car, going, dude, this is driving me nuts. You know, why is it this weird feeling at these lower speeds? It was a drivability issue. In fact, it was under low torque conditions. You know, 300 foot-pounds, 400 foot-pounds of torque, which for this car is kind of low, but it had this limiter, which made it kind of act weird going into fifth gear. I had changed some things in the pressures, and it actually kind of tuned it out, but it was still kind of there. And so anyway, that's just in fact, I had called Z and I said, have you seen this before? Because what's the deal? And he's like, yeah, there's some differences there. So anyway, getting back to it, there are a lot of differences. Shift RPM is higher from the factory with a Red Eye and a Demon versus the Hellcat. Kind of weird. The camshaft profile isn't that far off between the two. Not really sure why. The valve springs are not any different. It's the same valve springs. So I don't know why the RPM would be different, but it's funny when you look at it, especially now, it's funny to say this, but for you 5.7 guys, you'll appreciate this. The Hellcat is now the 5.7 of the supercharged variants, right? But oddly enough, it takes to mods better than the Red Eye and the Demon. So anyway, I always found that to be a little bit funny. And, you know, business has been a booming as far as, you know, making Hellcats, you know, stock boost Hellcats, sting Red Eyes. It's been something we've been doing left and right down here for a little bit. So, you know, the proof has already been proven in that, but anyway, oh, the irony, right? But anyway, there are a lot of running line changes, and there are, in fact, I mean, the Red Eye and the Demon Transtune is superior to the Hellcats in quite a few different ways. Shift is hanging out with Sean. And Barton shifters are awesome in those cars. You are right, Sean. Let's see, Dr. Diff saying he's found that the AFR make a bigger difference than timing, within reason anyway. They make good power because the efficiency of the head, once they because the efficiency of the head, timing doesn't do a whole lot of good. Dr. Diff saying, in my experience on gas, 19 degrees is a sweet spot and 21 degrees on E85. Some of them like it. I can tell you that mine hated 19 degrees. But every car is going to be a little bit different. And, you know, like I say, I mean, we've played with AFRs on those things. Like I say, I couldn't get Rob's car to make any more power playing with AFR. I could never really get mine to do any different. In fact, I played around with 11.2. It just, I just kept throwing fuel at it and the car just kept liking it. So it was kind of weird, or at least not complaining about it, but timing, timing was just like, you know, after about 17 degrees, that car just wasn't feeling it. But oddly enough, at 15 degrees, it didn't run right either. So there was a very narrow window with mine where it would actually work right. Oh, E85 running richer because that's where it works better. Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of how that stuff works. Sean's saying only 2 degrees for E85. Is that on a 392? Yeah, that's on a 392. You can get away with obviously significantly more on a boosted application because, again, that fuel is now in its element, if you will. When that fuel is in that higher compression, higher cylinder pressure environment, so to speak, it's just simply not going to, because of the octane rating and the charge cooling effect that it does have, it's not going to pre-ignite the way that gasoline would. So when you have a fuel that is more stable like that, then yeah, you can again start throwing just more and more at it because you've got, you know, more fuel in there to do that work for you. Plus, you start throwing that much more mass into a cylinder, you kind of artificially raise the compression ratio just slightly. Doc Diff said, oh, his was on a 5.7. Yeah, mine were all on 6.4s. John's asking, hello, B. Mason, what would you equate a 6.1 engine to be in the 60s as far as feel and driving? Thank you for a great show. Thanks, John. Appreciate the kind words, brother. So the best thing that I can, okay. The 6.1 is very similar to driving a very well sorted out 440. It's also like an any of the 427s or 454s from around 1969, 1968, somewhere in that range. That would be about as close as I can get you. It's still going to act a lot like a big block, mainly because you've got more aggressive gearing in a NAG 1, for example. The horsepower is definitely there, but it's there and then it's there some more. See, what you have to remember is that let's say 400 horsepower because, 425 horsepower. Let's talk about that for a minute. It's an easy number to back math because the original Hemis, the 426, was rated at 425 horsepower. But back then, you had so many different ways to rate an engine. You had rating the engine with no fan. You had rating the engine with stock manifolds. You had rating the engine with no fan and long tube headers. Rating the engine with no air cleaner, with air cleaner, accessories, etc. So they would rate those engines at basically their absolute highest horsepower rating. In many cases. And the Hemi, everybody says, the 426 was underrated. It was underrated. No, it wasn't. I mean, I hate to tell you this, but it really wasn't underrated. I've had those things on the dyno, and, when you run the math back, maybe with a really good tune-up, they're making 435, maybe even 440 horsepower, but it's not going to be much more than that. And usually those engines were rebuilt. So what a lot of folks don't realize is that the 426 Hemi, and God, I wish I could find this. Like I always give a homework assignment. So homework assignment. Back in 1970 or 1971, I believe, the 426 Hemi was given an SAE horsepower rating. Keep in mind that up to this point, all engines were rated in gross horsepower. Anyway, let me just go ahead and skip to the point here. The 426 Hemi's net horsepower rating, however that was derived, and my understanding was that was with an air cleaner, with stock manifolds, and with the fan attached. That's a big part right here. And of course, the front engine accessory drive. The engine made 390 horsepower. There you have it. Now, I cannot quote you that rating date. I can't even find it. In fact, I tried to find it a couple of months ago because it was driving me nuts. I wanted to print it out and put it in this stack of stuff that I have that kind of outlines the Hemi, but I just couldn't find it. So anyway, there's your homework assignment, guys. But anyway, that engine was SAE rated. Now, if that engine were SAE rated today, that same 390 horsepower, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt just because we're working with a number. I don't think it had a full exhaust system on it or anything like that. But just for the sake of argument, that 390 horsepower would be down by about another 13 horsepower because modern SAE J1370, I think is what it is. Anyway, that's a different set of parameters. That's why modern engines, like 485 horsepower out of a 392, if it were the older SAE rating, it'd be rated more about like 500 or 505 horsepower, just to give you an example. And that's what, by the way, dynos are still running off of, or at least were, dyno jets were. I think Mustangs are actually using the modern SAE correction factors, SAE parameters, I should say, of 70 degrees, 0% humidity, and 29 point, I forget. Anyway, Nerd. Anyway, you see what I'm talking about, right? I mean, it's a different set of parameters. So anyway, there you have it. So in a way, you could almost say that it would be like the Hemi, but with one massive difference. A lot better tip-in torque. The only thing that I can tell you about driving a car with a Hemi from back then is that they weren't very responsive. They were fairly soft under partial throttle conditions and fairly soft under about 3,000, maybe 3,200 RPM. After about 3,500 RPM, they really woke up and would pull actually pretty hard to about 6,200 RPM. But up to that point, you know, not so much. That's really where the 440 came in, and to some extent the 383 as well. They just pulled better from tip-in, and that'll happen when your peak RPM realistically is 4,700 RPM. 440 was underrated anyway, or overrated, I should say, from the factory. It's kind of hard to make a big block make big power with small block heads, but it made do with what it had, and it did an exceptionally good job of being extremely torquey and peppy and punchy to drive. So the 6.1 kind of falls into a bit of a gray area because it's got some qualities of like a really well sorted out 383, and it's got other qualities that are kind of reminiscent of, you know, of what the realities were with a 426 Hemi. So anyway, hopefully that helps you, kind of paints a little bit of a picture for you, if nothing else. Oh, Doc Div saying they look down on the Nag 1 because it's a 5-speed and not an 8-speed. Yeah, I get that, but, you know, I like Nag 1s. Johnny's saying the Nag 1 of my 300C really loved having a tune. Stock, it was kind of mushy. Very true on that. Shawnee's saying exactly. Or Dr. saying at Shawnee, exactly. John saying, hey, new owner of Red Eye, is it possible that supercharger relief went out air cleaner? Wait, what? Entering roadway, rolling into accelerator at about 3/4 throttle, up around auto shift, backed off and heard bang. Oh, I think you're asking if you would have heard the bypass pop through the air cleaner. No, I don't think you would have. When the bypass opens up, it's just recirculating that air that's in the supercharger. It's just recirculating there. I don't know what happened with that, brother. But no, you would not hear. I mean, the only thing you would hear through the intake tract at all would be a true backfire. So I don't know what would have caused that. It sounds kind of weird. Let's see. Doc Div's talking about the 85 thing. He said, that's right. That's right there. What you said, there's more there to add the power. E85 has more mass because there's more of it. Reason it makes more power, my truck made over 60 horsepower and 8 PSI and 0 knock. And that's the thing, man. E85 is, I mean, it's the tuner's best friend, provided that you're getting true E85. And this is where things get a little bit dicey with the 85. So the problem with the 85, guys, and y'all know this at this point, but E85, the MEA spec for E85, if you guys are not familiar, is anywhere from E70 to E90. Anywhere within that range is considered E85. And the reason for that, there's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of it has to do with cold weather, ease of starting, and things like that. Ethanol just doesn't like to light off when it's cold. Gasoline doesn't really care, and so what they'll do is during the wintertime, they'll dial back the amount of ethanol and ramp up the amount of gasoline. Well, that screws up your tune. It can screw up your tune. Anyway, and so E85 may not always be E85, and I know that some tuners will just, throw fuel in it and they don't test it, and, I know that Alex and Dr. Dev, they're always testing the E85 that they use so that they have a base understanding of what fuel it is that they're tuning with, because that fuel, that E85, if you will, is what is going to make or break the tune in that vehicle. So just knowing that and knowing what the parameters are that you're working with makes a huge difference. Oh, Cap Scat's coming in saying, what's up, Professor Mason? Good evening, everybody. What's up, Cap? Dr. Diff saying, very forgiving fuel. Temps help so much, and it can run more boost safely. That's the benefit of E85. That is true. Cap's checking in with Dr. Diff. Oh, Slash is checking in saying, finally confirmed the pipes reso delete indeed does fit the Charger. Very good. I ordered them yesterday. Mini Race Bullets also replacing the mid mufflers should be awesome. I hope it'll sound amazing. Just remember, measure 3 times, cut once. I don't know that, I'm pretty sure that the video that I did will help you along in terms of links to cut. But again, just measure twice, cut once. Let me give you a pro tip on installing that, brother. So here's the thing. Make sure that you allow for enough of, so when you're, damn it, I don't have a thing to show you. I need a prop and I don't have a prop. Hang on, let me see if I got a prop. Timeout. Dadgummit. I want to show you this because if I don't, I do. I got this thing right here. Hang on. This is going to help. Maybe. Okay, this will have to work. Okay. So I want you to think of this pipe here, this rubber pipe, as the pipe on your car, and this being a link of that reso delete. This is going to be a big deal, and you'll really want to pay attention to this. So notice how it's bent like this. And if I take this pipe, and I can't really fit it in there, but we're going to pretend like I can. If I take this pipe and I put it in this far, it'll be fine, right? But you know that I can keep pushing and pushing and pushing until, like, from your point of view, I start to restrict. See all this up here that I'm restricting? See how I'm like cramming this into that pipe? You always want to make sure that when you're cutting that pipe, you only allow it to go this far before that radius. You can go in shallower, but don't go deeper. You can end up going deeper in there, and that will absolutely jack up the flow. So pay very close attention to it. You're going to want to mark your exhaust, the factory exhaust that you cut. Mark it the distance, mark it this distance back on the pipe so that when you go to insert it, you don't go too far. So in other words, so in review, for your pipe, don't go too deep into that reso delete pipe. Only go just into where, and you'll see it there, that pipe is actually flanged up a little bit. Only go, from your point of view, only go to as far as that pipe goes. Don't think you can just cram the thing in there. Well, now you're gonna end up with this big ass, by the way, these don't work on the truck. I already tried, Jeff. Anyway, they don't. So anyway, there's your lesson on how to install that thing. And just follow that guideline and you'll turn out good. But I've actually pulled cars apart where guys had done their own personal mechanicking, and they're, I can handle that myself. Well, yeah, you did a great job installing it, but you did a pathetic job of knowing what you were doing when you're installing. So I want to make sure that you have that knowledge. It's real easy to screw up. You get in there, you get working and everything. Don't do that. Measure, make your marks, and don't go too deep into that thing, and it'll flow like it was made from the factory. Let's see. Viagas is saying, what's up, B-Makes? What's up, man? Saying, thinking of remote tuning my 2012 Charger. It's stock, just a K&N cold air. Is it worth spending money in a tune? If it was your car, would you tune it? Well, if it were my car. No, here's the thing. I would, if it's a Charger, transmission tuning is going to be really more where it's at for you. Engine tuning, not so much. I mean, you can clean up some things in the engine tune and make it be a little bit more crisp, but you're just not going to pick up gobs and gobs of power through a tune. But you can pick up some power and really more performance, I should say, with that trans tune. So I'd say go for it with that. Dr. Doe's hanging out with Captain Scat. Let's see. Ship Nick saying, I have an Intune i3 Diablo Sport handheld for my SRT4. Can I use the same handheld on my 16 Scat Pack to see my data log or check engine lights? Yes, you should be able to, because all of the OBD2 is universal. You can use that on any car. Any data logging, as long as you can pull PIDs, you'll be just fine. Let's see. Captain Scat's checking in saying, hey, and Dr. Diff, and I have been talking about what the best cam might be for my 2016 5.7 Hemi. I was looking at the Joker cam, but because I have no plans for adding laughing gas, it might not be the best option. I run 800 plus miles at a time when I come to work, and I do it often. Oh, and then White Knuckles saying, need to unlock the 16 PCM. You don't need to unlock it for data logging, but if you want to do anything to it, you will need to unlock it. You know, the Joker cam is an awesome cam, man. It just so happens to make a lot of power naturally aspirated. The 5.7 just, it takes to that thing like a duck to water. I would say that you would be in pretty good shape if you're doing a lot of highway driving. If you're doing a bunch of city driving, I don't know. It depends on what your threshold is for an aggressive cam. To be honest with you, some guys just kind of get over that pretty quickly. Other guys just love it and never get over it. So there's that. There's other camshaft profiles. I can put together a camshaft profile that'll be a little bit less racy, but man, I mean, dude, there's something about that Joker cam that is just super intoxicating. So, hold on, my peoples. Anyway, so I don't know that it would be, a bad thing to run that cam like that. I mean, it wouldn't really hurt anything, but if you're gonna be doing that much highway driving, I would say maybe put together a slightly different grind for you. Something that's going to be a little bit less racy, but still give you a pretty decent power pump, and that's not hard to overcome. Let's see, Sovereign Knight saying it's the famous tuner B Mason who tunes Racer X's cars. Well, I don't know about that. I just clean up some stuff here and there for him. But yeah, his car screams. Hey, if you haven't seen the video, yeah, the in car of that car is a lot of fun to watch. I love that, watching that thing run. Capscat saying, Dr. Diff, what's up, bud? Sam's asking, what's the story of the F body behind me? So that thing is basically, that's my wife's car, and it is a 92 Rally Sport. And it is it's a 305 throttle body injected automatic car. And there really isn't a story behind it. She wanted a Camaro. We found this thing and we bought it. And I love driving it. I actually really do. It's super torquey, super responsive. I don't think the thing revs over 4,200 RPM, but it does need some work. I'm in the process of doing a little bit of work to it. And basic things like, you know, I got to pull the dash out of it, have that board redone. A bunch of just normal GM electrical demons, but, and I probably should put a different fuel pump in it. Somebody had put a fuel pump in the car, and they basically just cut the back out and, you know, pulled the pump out that way as opposed to dropping the tank. And I swear to you, they didn't put the sock on the fuel pump or something, because if it's running even somewhat low on gas, it'll stall on diesel. So I think it's a sock issue. Probably have a sock floating around in the back of that gas tank. So, but just a few things to fix on it here and there. I mean, you know, with a decent amount of fuel, you'd never even notice that. But it's a lot of fun to drive. Like I say, it's nice and punchy. It'll cruise at 80 or 90 miles an hour basically all day long. It is absolutely not fast at all, but it will do a pretty nice burnout. So, I mean, I love stuff like that. And it handles really well, but the thing I like the most about it is that it will eat up miles like you would not believe. Summer Night saying Dodge Challenger for sure. Mopar. Love them all, man. Dr. Diff saying, yep, you found it in the updated beta. I told you to update it. It's great, isn't it? I love me some HP tuners. Use it daily, and I update daily, and recent update daily and twice on several days. So the fun thing about that is, you know, when you're looking at all of these updates and everything that's coming on with just the amount of R&D that they're putting into this platform, it's funny how many different PIDs keep coming out that you can tune. But more to the point, it's even more fun on the torque management side because there's so many limiters and there's so many areas where you can look at it and go, they made a change. Oh, they made a change. Oh, that's the reason why 15 and 16 seem to run a little bit better than 17s. I mean, it's all in the tune. And if you know what to look for, it literally pops off the screen. Like you just go, you know, and it's pretty fun stuff. Demonology's in. What's up, my man? Saying, B Mason, have you heard that the Demon axles are stronger than aftermarket axles? I haven't seen that in practice. I know that the G-Force have a lifetime, and the Drive Shaft Shop, I think, also have lifetime warranties on their axles. And I want to say that they'll cover about, you know, 14 or 1,500 foot-pounds of torque. So I haven't heard that. I know that the Demon and the Red Eye axles are stout, though. I mean, real stout. So are they stronger? I don't know that they're stronger, but I think that the delta between the Red Eye / Demon axle and the aftermarket axle is significantly tighter than it is from, say, a Hellcat to those axles. KDK saying, did he read my question? My Wi-Fi crashed. I don't think I saw your question, man. Post it back up, man. Post her back up. Ken797 saying, man, appreciate the contribution to the cause, saying, thank you, B. I am going to get the Advanced Fuel Dynamics E85 kit that uses the GM Flex fuel sensor for my Red Eye, using E85 at drag strip only. I wish I had more information on that kit. I wish I had more experience with that kit. You know, and that's really on me. I've been kind of critical about the lack of a true, honest to goodness E85 kit for these cars. So I need to look into that one. But I have heard some good things about it. But if it's using the GM sensor, then that is the right kit to get. Don't try to, and I'll come out and say it, trying to make the Mopar operating systems or the FCA operating systems work in a flex fuel environment is simply, I mean, you're just pushing rope. Trust me, it's all you can do to get it to work right for a while, and then the thing just basically deteriorates. But Ken, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that very much. Oh, yeah. Everybody say what's up, Demonology. Demonology's in the house. Let's see. Yeah, Captain Scat's checking in. Let's see. White Knuckles saying, when is that Whipple due to arrive? I like it. Dion saying, Captain Scat, I've come to get some knowledge from B Mason. Very nice. Summer Night got the thumbs up. Brendan's checking in saying, hey, B Mason, hope all is good. And it is. Do you recommend an Archangel battery for the Hellcat or too much money for the weight you save? Well, it used to not be as expensive as it is now. And back then I would have said, yep, get one. But now that these things are checking in at about 8 bills or 9 bills, it makes it kind of difficult to, well, it makes it real difficult to recommend them unless you're really trying to pick apart, weight savings. For me, nothing wrong with the stock battery. And the Archangel is pretty good. And if, I think his name is Nick, if he's able to get a hold of those things now, they're fantastic batteries, but I would say they're fantastic batteries at, I don't know, $500, $400, somewhere in that range. But when you start looking at $800 plus for those things, it makes it kind of difficult to, I don't know. It makes it a little bit difficult to recommend them. Although I will say this, one of the big advantages of having an Archangel or a lithium XXX battery, it could be lithium ferrous, it could be lithium, it won't be lithium polymer because that's too volatile, but you'll have lithium ferrous, it could be lithium ion, any of those types of batteries, is that they have a significantly higher charge per cell. Whereas a lead acid will have basically 2 volts per cell in essence, and they're heavy. A lithium ion will have like 3 volts per cell, and they're light. So in that case, you've got an initial harder hit when you go to start the vehicle. And that's just the way that all of that works out. You've got better voltage retention and all of that, which can help the car start. Or if you're running something like, your taser or something like that, your cool down feature, it can help that feature run for a little bit longer, but just remember, it won't run forever and you can still kill those batteries. They do last longer. So you're in essence, if you're looking at a stock battery that costs $150 or $200, over the course of 10 years, you'll buy 1 less battery. So I guess there's that. If you're replacing your battery on average every, 3 or 4 years, these things will last roughly, 8 or 10 years, depending on the climate that you live in. So there's that to work off of as well. So the way that your own personal economics work out, I would say that you're probably going to be, you might be money even getting one over the long run. But what I will say is this, they will outperform your stock battery by a significant margin. So buy it because of quality. The side effect is that you get a weight savings, but I like the way that my car starts with that battery. It just spins it so much faster. And that alone is worth it to me as well. Oh, Demonology is saying that he uses the Braille battery. Yeah, does Braille make a battery that's got the reserve capacity though that the Archangels do? I know that they're really good as far as just a race battery, but if you're running or trying to run cool down features and things like that, they just don't have the milliamp hours. In other words, they just don't have the gas tank, so to speak. Let's see. Captain Scat saying, Demonology, you and the rest of us, brother. I like it. Summer Night saying, blah. Let's see. White Knuckle saying, Think B runs the Archangel. No, yes, I do, as a matter of fact. Eric saying, Hey, B Mason, would you recommend porting 6.4 throttle body or just getting a stock Hellcat throttle body? Don't waste your time with the stock Hellcat throttle body. Okay. Unless you have basically cut and plastic welded some significant changes to that manifold, you're not really going to get any benefit from the Hellcat throttle body, namely because the throat is the restriction that, if you're looking at the throat, it comes out, drops down, and turns into that plenum. There's not enough flow there to support what that 92 millimeter is going to try to, or at least would presumably allow to flow through there. It just will never flow that amount. Now you could say, well, yeah, but it'll flow all of it. Yeah, all that it can. Well, to be honest with you, the 80 millimeter is a little on the large side for the type of flow that neck actually has. When I port those manifolds, one of the big things that I spend a lot of time on is reshaping and opening up that area to where it will flow basically what an 84 or an 85 millimeter throttle body will flow. So if I try to go more than that, depending on the casting, because you know, as Dr. Diff can attest to, this intake might be on Captain Scat's car, by the way. I spent a lot of time cutting on that intake. And so that casting was extremely thick from the factory. Some 6.4 manifolds are thinner than others. And so making those changes, if I go too much, I've got to backfill the under part of that manifold with epoxy. And I don't like doing that. It works, don't get me wrong, but I prefer to have it not quite that thin. But there is one intake manifold that I've done that was absolutely backfilled, and that is on Quick Brick's car. So ask me how much material came out of that one. Anyway, getting back to it. No, seriously, guys, don't overthink the throttle body thing when it comes to the 6.4. Stick with the recipe. Don't go too far off the recipe. 84 millimeter will work. 85 millimeter is gorgeous if you get one from Dr. Differential. That thing looks like jewelry. The Fastman, though, I've run Fastmans and they work as well. So any bigger, though, and you're just not going to get any value out of it. Plus, you can get the added disadvantage, or pain in the butt, rather, of somewhat jerky response with that thing. It can potentially get a little bit, drivability can be a little bit weird, or at least you'll have some tuning that you'll have to do. And Dr. Diff knows how to fix that. Basically, if you are going to run a Hellcat throttle body, you need to run the Hellcat throttle body airflow table. Dr. Diff saying, somehow I put you on a timeout with your question. I want to let you know I must have done that by accident. Oh, he butt moderated. Good job, Justin. I love it. Let's see. Oh, Slash is saying, can't seem to find much at Archangel lately. What do you think about the Braille 15-pound battery for track, or their 21 for daily driving? 21 for daily driving is the one you probably would want. Either way, I mean, look, you and I can play catch with the little one. I'm not kidding. They're that light. I mean, I know that it says that it's 12 pounds, but dude, you're 15 pounds, but I'm telling you, you pick the thing up and it's like it doesn't even exist. It works great, but it works great if you're doing track days, like a track rental. And you've got a separate setup that you can run for running cool down modes and things like that. If you're not doing that, you're just going to the track, it's here and there, you're just out playing with the car here and there. I would get the battery with the higher capacity. So I would go with that one. And there's not that big of a, I mean, there's a significant internal capacity upgrade with not much of a downside, in other words, in terms of weight. I mean, if you get the right burger, you'll eat more in a day than that thing weighs different. So, White Knuckles saying, hanging out with Dr. Diff. Sovereign saying, so ethanol quality greatly affects your tune. Yeah, so not only will ethanol quality, ethanol content really is what affects it the most, but not only will that affect the tune, that can affect not really the tune, but how the car will react with future fuels that you run. Some tuners will actually downgrade the E85 to roughly E70. And tune off of E70 with the understanding that E85 it'll just be better with E85. Racer X, man, thank you very much. I appreciate the contribution to the cause, brother. Saying, I want to be like you when I grow up. I appreciate everything you do, buddy. Couldn't do it without your help, man. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for that. It's very generous of you, my friend. Thank you so much for the contribution, man. Happy to. Always happy to help a friend, brother. I appreciate you very much, but thank you so much for the kind words and for the contribution, brother. Thumbs up. Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. Oh, hang on a second. I lost my spot. That thing popped up and wanted to jump on it. But thank you so very much, Racer X. Everybody say what's up to Racer X, y'all. Can y'all hear that? So anyway, so you guys know where the shop basically is. There's a it's on the way to Mexico, and so and where I am and where I live is near a drag strip. Lots of hot rodders, lots of fast stuff coming in from Pasadena, Pearland, Alvin, all of that. They all run through here to get to some of these areas out here. So you know, obviously Houston, Katy, a lot of those guys come out here and run. So it makes it fun. Let's see. Sovereign, I say you don't want an inside lip. What? Demonology saying, thanks, me. That's my problem. I always go too deep with my pipe. Now, I understand that, man. But is it really too deep? Let's see. Arthur's saying, what I'd be Mason here for the knowledge. Thank you, brother. I think we just got a little bit of knowledge from deep inology. Arthur Wall is saying, good Lord. Brent saying, thanks, Demonology. Few Orby Mason, I have the Braille but never installed it. I like the idea that Archangel fit right in. If I stick it where the Braille, should I with the Braille, should I mount it? Yeah, absolutely you can. Yeah, just, you know, I mean, it should be too hard to, you know, be able to make that work though. I wouldn't think back there. Oh, Dr. Div saying at cap 345, we're doing good. That Joker would set you straight, set you right, having a 6-speed, or let B put a grind together. And he said, oh, B beat me to it. Yep. I mean, it's fun to, you know, look at that. You know, again, if it's a 6-speed car, dude, man, I'd stick with a Joker if it's a 6-speed car, bro. Because, I mean, come on. You're just driving down the highway. It goes down the highway just fine. We got the perfect car to compare it to anyway with Pop's car. So, we're not saying Z28. Oh, about the Camaro. No, the Camaro is a rally sport. Capscat saying, thanks, B. I will get with Dr. Diff. I like it. Good deal. Racer X said, I just joined and Demonology is already talking about his pipe. What's good, buddy? Deeponology is doing good, man. So when I said, hey, it's Racer X. I like it. Yeah, everybody say what's up. Let's see. Oh, Captain Scat's hanging out with Dr. Diff. Demonology is saying Braille now makes one that is full size, so even better. So if Braille's making one that's full size that fits in the bracket, then you definitely go with that one. If you want to go with the lighter weight version of it. Dr. Diff saying, oh yeah, Demonology and Racer X in. Yep, we got the crew in, man. I love it. Racer X hanging out with White Knuckle and Dr. Diff. Sovereign Knight saying incompatible systems. Sovereign Knight lithium ion versus lead acid 3.2 to 3.7. That's what it is. Something like that. Yeah, the better thing about, so the thing is with the Braille or with the Archangel, what you'll find is there are balancing leads that are actually built into the battery. If this, for you guys that are into the RC world, this is the exact same thing as if you've got a 3-cell, 4-cell, 2-cell, 6-cell LiPo batteries. It's the same idea. You have to balance charge those batteries the same way that you balance charge your RC stuff. It is literally the exact same thing, just bigger in general. So that's what's going on with the batteries themselves. And the only time you'll have a problem with those batteries, and this was an issue with the Archangel batteries. is that the balancing leads would fail. There would be like a break or just a manufacturing issue. And what would happen is that you just wouldn't get full voltage out of the battery, and they would obviously die easier. You'd run into charging issues potentially as well with them. So just know as far as, they're not as simple. They are a little bit more sophisticated, but for the most part, I mean, that's kind of a fail-safe thing. It's kind of foolproof, but again, that's one thing that you do need to know if you're thinking about going with one of those types of batteries. There is circuitry in there to make it work with your charging system, and there is also circuitry in there to make it charge each of the cells evenly. And again, you don't want to hit it with any more than about 14.5 volts. You want something that will kill the charge at about 14.5 volts, give or take. Josh was saying, "Hey, B. Mason, after watching Racer X's video, I've learned you tune cars, ? Is this something you offer to others or have a price for going over, something you'd be interested in or comfortable with?" I don't do that for other folks. I hate to tell you that, buddy, but I only stick with, Racer X, I've known him for years now, and I've known Rob for years too. I can clean up tunes, but that's about as far as I will go for a lot of these things. Not that I can't tune them outright, but I will leave that for the folks that have chosen to accept the liability of being a tuner. I don't want that. I'm very customer service oriented, and I'm obsessive about some of this stuff, as you guys can possibly imagine. And so, in fact, I've been pushing Racer X pretty hard lately about, hey, did you get the data log? Did you do this? What's going on with that? I'm like a puppy when it comes to this stuff, just how excited I can get. But no, unfortunately, I don't. I try to help folks where I can, but when it comes to actually getting into tuning and, putting that kind of effort and time into it, to basically create a business model out of it, I literally don't have enough time to do it. So, again, I would love to. I'm fascinated by it. I love it. I really do, but just don't have the actual time in the day between work and, family and just general stuff to do that, with any real amount of sincere focus that it would take that I would want to put into it. But you say it had to ask. Yep. No, I appreciate the ask though. But when I do get into it, I get into it pretty deep, and obviously I'm picking some things apart with a fine-tooth comb, so much so that I'm nitpicking 1% on on shift scheduling. I'm just whittling this thing down to the nth degree. But that's the thing. They always say the devil's in the details. Well, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at these itty bitty nth degree details that make the difference between running that number that you've always wanted to run and being just a little bit off of that number. That's where all of those itty bitty little bitty changes that you make, that's where they add up. And sometimes all of those changes can make a fairly significant difference. Could make as much as 1/10, maybe even 2/10 of a second in the quarter mile. And that is a huge, huge improvement. So, and this is all in transmission tuning too, guys. In some cases, there are some adverse effects to some of the things that I'll do in terms of drivability, but, and again, this is where, we're talking about earlier, just how complicated and convoluted transmission tuning can be. This is part of that. There's so many different values, torque limiters. All of that stuff makes a difference with what the computer will then output in the driving experience of the car. So, but if you want to run the number, got to play the game. And so that's kind of where we're at with some of these things. Oh, Sour Knight saying, Racer X, I checked out the video with the new changes B Mason did to your Hellcat. Noticeable improvement indeed. Yeah, you know, I tell you what, I'm not patting myself on the back too quickly just yet. I think there's still some more improvement that I can eke out of it, but those were just shakedown runs. That tune really was a proof of concept with what was going on with his car for the shifting. It did really well. And I mean, the car ran a real strong number in significantly, well, an equal DA. Equal number that it ran in much lower DA. That car ran that night with those changes that I made. So yeah, definitely off to a good start. I think that there, again, are some changes that can be made to improve drivability. There's some changes that can be made to possibly improve performance out of it. But so far, so good. And again, it's all coming down to consistency and just getting that thing out of the hole the way that it needs to without being overly aggressive and without, I don't know, overwhelming parts downstream with that car. In other words, throwing way too much torque at it out of the hole. Doctor saying, hell yeah, everybody's in the house tonight. Everybody hit that like button. Yeah, hit the like button, guys. Captain Scat saying, Racer X, I'm good, my friend. Hope you are as well. Shipney saying, would you recommend the Sniper Cam on a 392 M6, even though I drive it to work about? Oh, yeah, dude, Sniper Cam is a clean cam. In fact, not much lope, if any, at all. Good performance down low with a strong pull up top. It's a very good cam, and it's actually my own personal signature cam. I like that cam a lot. Arthur Wall saying, Racer X got the arm flex and the bald guy with shades. White Knuckle, thank you very much. I appreciate that a ton, brother. It didn't pop up, though. I don't know why they didn't pop up for me. Saying, I accept Racer X's challenge and raise 99 cents. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for the contribution, man. It means a ton to me. Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for that. I don't know why it didn't pop up, though. Racer X saying, yes, it most definitely did. Sovereign Knight, talking about the changes. Dr. Div saying, we should know where this close to Mexico spot you seem to have at that place. Housewarming thing, maybe? Possibly. We'll see. Depending on how the weather goes. Oh, yeah, by the way, guys that are going to be involved in the track rental, be on the lookout for some emails coming from me. It'll be going to the email that you paid the entry fee for. As far as if we have bad weather, which, you know, who knows, Southeast Texas, nobody even knows what it's going to be like tomorrow. Anyway, if we have bad weather, I think the bailout day is actually January 23rd. It's a Sunday. But due to other scheduling conflicts, we cannot get that Sunday after the rental. So, but it, you know, if it's going to be bad weather, inclement weather or whatever, I believe it's a Sunday, January the 23rd. But be on the lookout for an email from me coming for that here pretty soon. All right, guys. Thank you all very much. Let's see. Racer said, white knuckle for the win. I like it. Got the thumbs up and the arm flex. Yeah. Skid Mark saying, nice 5.7 Hemi rebuild videos. Thanks. I am on my first Hemi rebuild now. Done many wedges, though. Not sure if I know of any rebuild videos. Tough to say. There's not much really different with the car. I mean, if you've done other engines, then this thing will be basically second nature to you. Summer Night saying, yeah, all the cells have to be charged equally or boom. Yeah, so what happens is like with a lithium polymer battery, those are very volatile, but they have very high volts per cell. Lithium ferrous is where a lot of the electric cars were looking as an upgrade to lithium ion as far as durability, just physical durability, but durability in terms of repeated charging and discharge cycles. Lithium ferrous is very good in that environment. And it's, again, it's a very stable battery. And then after that is lithium polymer. I think lithium ferrous is 3.5 or 3.3 volts per cell, and lithium ion is 3.7. But you would charge them up to, I mean, you can get away with like 4.2-ish. But anyway, you get the idea. Rated at 3.7 if memory serves me correct. It's been a while since I did LiPo University. Cap's got saying, Dr. Diff, with me having an A8 trans, I really want to get that Joker cam just to race Pop's Challenger and see how the cam reacts between A8 and M6. Yeah, get ready, because that thing is going to scream. There's a little pick-em-up truck running around. It's an A8, I think, with that Joker cam that is pretty freaking quick. So, just saying. Arthur Wells saying, B. Mason, true passionate automobile enthusiast. Indeed. Thank you, sir. I am. And as you say, we are so lucky. Good evening, Mr. Mason. Good evening, Anthony. Arthur Wall saying, struggling with a fog light bulb while listening to B. Mason. Funny you should mention that. So Foxy, both fog lights work on Foxy, but one of them is broken. So, and I just noticed it. This is after doing the trim pieces, I've noticed it when I was putting in the headlights. Put in all new headlights, did the strikers, adjusted the doors, adjusted the rear hatch, all of that, did all of that stuff to the car, and then grenaded the clutch with a full tank of gas in the car right now too, which is driving me nuts. Anyway, God. Yeah, I've got a broken, the glass itself is broken on that fog light. Can you believe that? Dave is asking, what is the biggest horsepower for a cam on a 392 that you have seen? I don't know that I've seen a lot more than about 5 and change. But again, it depends on the dyno though. See, look, if you get like the sniper cam on a real generous DynoJet 248, there's a chance they could put 500, 515. I don't know. Dynos are funny because they are, but they're not a calibrated contraption. I mean, there's a literally moving parts involved with these things. But, you know, walking around number 500 plus or minus, you know, a couple of percent is going to be where most of them are going to be realistically. Where you start getting into some of the bigger number builds is aftermarket pistons, cam, the Holly sniper type, whatever it is, intake, where you're really spinning the thing to a pretty significant RPM, 72, 7,800 RPM in some cases, is pretty insane. And in those cases, it's going to be making pretty good number. But here's what I want to challenge you to think of, though. To the rear wheels, what is 500 horsepower? Well, 500 horsepower, an honest to goodness 500 horsepower is going to be fairly close to 600 horsepower at the flywheel. So that's a lot of paper, man. That's a lot of paper to spend to get to get that number, but you can get it. And so here's the other thing to answer the question. I haven't seen anybody be much higher than that. Now, there is a car floating around out there that's got basically my full send set to kill cam, the nastiest cam I put together for a 392. And that one is a Doc differential car, and that one is nasty. And unfortunately, I haven't seen a dyno number on it, but it's got one of our cams and one of our intake manifolds on it. It may even have, it also I think has a Hellcat throttle body on it. That thing is making some crazy power. And I am real interested to see what type of power it really is making. But by all accounts, it's doing real well. Let's see. Dave's saying, what is the fastest Scat Pack back east? All motor. Don't know. It's hard to say, but I do know that there are a few. Well, I mean, we've got some down here that are in the 10s, but those are all motor, but they're not stock displacement. And then I also know there's in fastest, this is where, you know, how stripped down is it, and at what point is it really still a car? But you start stripping weight out of these things. Cam, long tubes, ported intake, bigger throttle body, that whole routine obviously tunes, drag pack, what have you. You know, 1080s, even with a 392, is not out of the question whatsoever with enough weight reduction and some really cold, good air. Quick breaks in. What's up, man? So what's up, man? Just checking in. Thank you, brother. Good seeing you in, man. Cleaver Enterprise saying, what up, B? Off subject, my Scat Pack Charger got totaled in a damn non-fault accident. I'm sorry to hear that, brother. Do you think it's smart to reinvest into another Mopar, Hellcat, or high-end Durango? Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Here's something that you need to consider. So my 2015 Hellcat, right now, even with the mileage that it has on it, which isn't very much, like 15,000 miles, I could sell it for what I bought it for, which I still think is crazy. Dodge stuff in general, because it is considered to be a higher performing product, always seems to have a higher resale value. It's kind of weird just where those resale values are with the Hellcat Platinum vehicles, be it Hellcat, Red Eye, Super Stock, Demon, whatever. They're all very sought after vehicles. And people are willing to spend the money for them. So in that respect, yeah, I would say if you're into Mopar and you like what you had before, the new stuff is really good. All of the late model stuff is really good out of Mopar. And of course, I'm a big fan of the Hellcat platform because of how durable it is. So if that is within your budget and that's what you are looking to potentially land on, then yeah, I would say absolutely go for it. Also saying if I fit the kids into the Charger, but grabbing an 03 Tahoe for $5,000 with 45,000 miles or so, where do I go? Well, you say you can go both. I mean, get you a cash car type Bronco too. Get you a cash car type of a Tahoe, and they're cheap to fix, they're cheap to maintain, they're cheap to keep on the road. Just make sure you stay on top of your normal maintenance. And then save up for a little bit and get you a Hellcat. Have the best of both worlds. Brendan's saying, I'm definitely eventually going to go with a tune and pulley setup for the Hellcat. I want to add a separate race fuel tune. E85 is scarce in Northeast in New Jersey. What kind of race fuel would you recommend? I like MS-109. I like Sunoco GT 260 Plus, which is basically 104 octane. And I like Sunoco GT 260, which is 100 octane. They're all very good. It depends on what pulley ratio you go with. Now, this is where things get a little bit dicey, my man. So if you go with a set of pulleys, you are really knocking on some dangerous doors here. And the reason why I say that is because anything more aggressive than about a 285 upper pulley, you are going to now become best friends with products like Torco and Boostane, because you are going to be very close to the limits of what 93 octane can consistently handle in terms of knock resistance at that power level. You're not really high in terms of elevation, so that is going to do nothing but exacerbate the problems that you'll have with knock retard issues. So what I would recommend is, if you decide to go with a pulley that is 93 octane safe. Stick with like a 295 or a 310 upper pulley. Get a 93 octane tune that will work very well with that in all conditions, and then have your E85 tune to go along with that. I think that will be a whole lot more fun for you, and it'll be a whole lot safer for you too. And just know that if you ever really do want to turn the wick up on that car, what you'll be up against is simply fuel quality when you are not running your race fuel. And before you think, oh, I'll never put it in boost, it'll never be, trust me, you will. It happens to everybody. Just know that you're better off doing it this way than trying to get greedy with boost on it. Whoa, hey, wait a second. Quick break. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, man. For the contribution to the cause, saying just getting in on the super chat. Fun for our fearless Mopar horsepower professor. Thanks for all your efforts, my friend. Got the thumbs up and the fist bump, brother. Man, geez, man, thank you so much for that. Very much appreciate that, brother. Dang. Thank you, brother. Man, I really do appreciate that, buddy. Humbly, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Man, thank you so much. Chris is saying, I had someone try to argue with me today and say that E85 alone on a Hemi would add 25 wheel horsepower. No, it won't. But it will add a significant amount of torque down low. And to be perfectly honest, that's saying a lot. I mean, it's not like it's without its benefits. It's just that, again, you're working within the parameters of the product that you're working with. And in this case, it's an intake manifold and cam timing and a lot of other things that are going to not help it make power up top, but it will certainly help it to make power down low. But again, stick with the recipe. One of the things that you've got to remember with Mopar stuff is that if you stick with the recipe, stick within the loving hands of Mom Mopar, stick within the recipe and you'll be doing really well. The problem is that guys will find out really quickly that if you start to get too far one way or another with these Mopars, they just don't react really well. You've got to have something that plays well with the parts that you've got. Chris Harris saying, my 18x5 Raystar wheel would clear my 4-piston Brembos, correct? Yes. I use the 18x5 Raystars for the Hellcat. If they clear Hellcat brakes, they will definitely clear yours. Saying, I'm a full bolt-on cammed 100 shot of Nitrous 6.1 Hemi. What should be my next step? Well, if you're full bolt-on, got the 100 shot on your 6.1, next thing would be probably something like transmission tuning. Really dialing in your trans tune. Have your tuner basically looking at not only where your car makes peak power, but where your car is going to be shifting at the drag strip. And you've got to do this at the drag strip. You can't really do this on the street on the 1-2 and the 2-3 shift and everything that comes along with that. You want to make sure that you're looking at all of those parameters and picking those things apart with a fine-tooth comb. That would be the next thing that I would start to look at. If you're really not into the drag racing thing, then what I would say to that is don't worry too much about it. If it's running well, look at suspension mods. Anything like a set of BMR lower trailing arms will help a lot. Start looking at things that are going to help the stability of the car more than anything else. That's one of the things that I would be looking at as well. Let's see. Brenda's saying, yes, they will clear. Rep saying, you think going E85 on a scat pack is worth it? Yeah, but again, you got to stick with the formula. You're going to want to have a ported throttle body or a larger throttle body. You're going to want to have a ported intake manifold. You're going to want to have long tube headers along with your E85. So it's not just E85. And by the way, you will need injectors for that E85 setup. It's not just the E85, though, that helps to make the power. It's everything together. It's the package as a whole. All of these parts have to work in concert, or you're not going to get the full effect of what you're trying to go after. So the long tube headers are there to help accentuate that bottom end torque hit that you're going to get. It's obviously going to help with scavenging down low, but you need the extra scavenging because now you simply have extra exhaust mass that you need to move out of there. So these are all things that have to work together to make that combination work right. But yes, I do like them. Chris is asking, what are your thoughts on going weight reduction with taking my seats out and putting in some Kirky front seats? You know, I don't really have a problem with that. They're good. You'll save about 30 pounds a chair. And so you've got that going for you. The only downside is that, you know, you are going to be giving up some level of comfort, but you know, to be honest with you, they're just fine, you know, depending on which Kirkys you go with. But, I mean, dude, the ones that I've seen actually look pretty good, weren't uncomfortable, and, you know, you are saving quite a bit of weight. So, you know, if you're going for a specific number, I'd say go for it. Chris is asking, would it be ideal to daily a T56 trans if I were to drop it in a 6.1 Hemi? Yeah, a lot of people do. A lot of people daily manual cars. I mean, if you're looking to, you know, make that commitment, then, I mean, you already know what it's like to drive a manual. So I would have to say that if you're that into driving a manual, then yes, it's absolutely worth it. Just know that you're driving a manual now. So all the fun that comes with that. Put a really good clutch in it, please. I'm living through that. Sovereign saying 6.2 Hellcat motor is a really good motor according to what I've heard. Yes, they are. They're amazing. They're amazingly robust more than anything else. That's the main thing. White Knuckle saying quick break in for the win. I love it. Dave Suggan saying 1070 here, 127, at 127, 3,600 pounds, 2017 Challenger with cam, no head, stock throttle, and manifold, 85, first NA motor in Southern California. Very nice. I like it. Yeah, I know that, you know, with enough weight reduction, you'll run the number. And like I say, I've seen, you know, quite a few guys get into the tens with very little done to their cars, but with significant weight reduction. So there is always that to consider. But that's a very impressive run, my friend. Rep Almighty asking, say another thing I asked about the 85 is because I'm having a lot of short-term knock with the 91 octane in San Diego. Alternatives, man, you are running some boutique fuel down there in San Diego, man. Some of the same stuff that we were running in San Francisco, probably. Yeah, you probably are getting some short-term knock. If it's not tuned, I will tell you that a lot of that short-term knock is going to be false knock. Hemis are just known for false knock. It's a bit of an Achilles heel in a way. So a tune can remove some of that, but it won't make the problem really go away. And the problem really is the fuel. You're just going to be timing limited. Alternatives, well, you can go with some Boostane or Torco, although that can get tiresome and rather expensive given enough time. You can mix in a little bit of race gas if you really want to get creative with it. But unfortunately, no. I mean, you're going to be limited by the tune at this point with that setup. Oh, Cleaver said something about wide bodies, but something got cut out there. Rep, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. That just popped up too. Man, thank you for the contribution, brother. $20. Thank you so much. Man, I appreciate you guys. Thank y'all so very much for that. Very much. Wow. Saying thanks for the tips. Man, hopefully I can help. That's the main thing, man. All I want to do is see you guys succeed. That's my goal. So if I'm helping, man, I truly hope I am, and I hope that I can continue to help you too. And this helps me do it too. You know, I appreciate it. Let's see. But thank you, Rep. I truly do appreciate that, buddy. And again, hopefully I help. Albert is asking, yo, Mr. Mason, heading to Houston in early February. Any good car museums out there? And could you recommend the best steakhouse in town? No really good car museums, although you would think that I'm off to a swimming start here. But we do have some aircraft museums. We've got one in Galveston that's really good. So there's that. And then a bunch of World War II stuff if you're into that. Lots of cool stuff down there. Best steakhouse in town. Probably True Lux is what I would go with on that. True Lux, or I'm going to stick with True Lux. I like True Lux. They're actually pretty good. There are some places I would say to steer clear from. I'm not a big fan of Eddie V's. Use a little bit too much salt on the meat. But True Lux does a good job. So I will stay with that one. And again, Rhett, man, thank you so much. I appreciate that, bud. Quick break, you too, brother. Thank you very much for that. It's very generous, guys. Thank y'all very much. Oh, Dave is saying, I work a lot on my suspension, and thank you, appreciate it. 1.5 60 foot and 15-inch conversion on the rear with small brakes up front. Yeah, see, and that's part of that weight reduction we were talking about. I mean, you start getting into that level of weight reduction, it really does start to pick up quite a bit. White knuckles at Rep Almighty. The challenge was $20.99. That's funny. Cleaver's asking, is Dodge changing the Hellcat platform or body style, or body styles in any of them? Basically talking about the LX platform. Not really. My understanding is that there may be some running line changes in 2023. The thing is I don't see FCA Dodge, but primarily FCA, making too much of a departure from the LX platform as it sits. It is a cash cow for Dodge and for FCA. I would say that if it were me pulling the strings, which it ain't, but if it were a revised, slightly revised LX platform, which would be to say maybe a slight rebody, utilizing the LX platform will be about as far as they'll go. And we've heard rumors of the Ghibli platform. We've heard rumors of the Giulia platform being the next. But so far as what's come out of FCA, that just hasn't been the case. And with the licensing agreement for the LX platform through Mercedes-Benz basically ending in 2023, we really only have the 21, 22, and 23 model years left. And the big rumor was that the newest body style was going to be released in 2023. Now it's looking like that might be the last of the LX platform body styles unless they re-up at that point. Now, a lot of folks have criticized Dodge for being slow in getting that revision put into place. But again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And these things are filling a niche in the marketplace that nobody has dared to venture into, which is that big American style muscle car market. There's just nobody else there. And so for every super fast Mustang and, Camaro, you've got this almost as fast Mopar that is half again seemingly the size of the thing, typically 800 pounds heavier, but damn, they're comfy, cushy, and they fill a void that if it weren't there would make Dodge, and just by association, anything that would fall along the lines of a muscle car from them, it would make them an also-ran. And you don't want, there's a few things in this business that you really don't want to do that I've observed, is you don't want to try to out Mustang. It's a bad idea. It won't work. And that's what happened to Camaro. And even though you can mod the hell out of a Camaro and make a really fast car out of it, that doesn't translate into sales. And look at it like this. The Mustang and the Challenger work really well with a female demographic, okay? The way that they sit now. The Mustang, girls like to drive. Girls love driving Mustangs. Girls love riding in Mopars. But because they like to be seen in them, they're sporty, they're trendy, they're fast, they're known quality, known fun brands. They have an image that comes with them. There's a certain marketing panache that a Mustang or that a Mopar will have. And girls pick up on that. They just don't really gravitate to Camaros because that's kind of a bland area. And that's not me saying that. That's focus groups talking about that kind of stuff. So, whoa, hey, wait a minute. Yarmir, dang, brother, thank you so much. I appreciate the contribution, brother. Asking, is the Diablo Trinity 2 any good? Yes, I still have one, and I was using it for data logging short-term knock retard. So yes, it is good. Does it have a 93 tune option? It does, but if typically in a Trinity, you'll have several tunes available, and if it's preloaded tunes, then yes, you'll have a 93 tune option. You may have a 91 tune option, and you can go in and change timing values in that Trinity. You can lower timing or raise timing, things like that. In fact, when I had the tune in my old work truck, I had actually lowered the timing values primarily because I was getting some tip-in spark knock. I lowered the timing values and that went away. So yes, you can do that. What part of your engine does nitrous damage? All of it. So what can potentially happen is it's not nitrous damaging it. It's a failure in the tune somewhere to be able to manage the nitrous that you have. Or it could be a fuel solenoid that didn't go off, and so you didn't introduce the required fuel to burn the nitrous oxide. So in essence, you turn the inside of your combustion chamber into what amounts to an acetylene torch, which burns holes in things, literally, just like an oxyacetylene torch. But with the fuel there, you have something to burn that isn't the metal, and so that thing makes power, for lack of a better way to put it. But you can also have too much nitrous, which could be too much cylinder pressure that the rods can't handle, so the rod bends, and bent rod can sometimes end up flying out of the side of the engine, which can mean that your block just got remodeled and ventilated at the same time. Any detonation because of a bad tune could cause a piston to rot, could cause the ring end gap to pinch, pop your ring land, and then you'll have a damaged piston along with some damage to the cylinder head. Nitrous can also backfire, and in that case, you could disintegrate your intake manifold. By the way, these are all things that I've seen in person or have been a party to. So I'm not only speaking from experience, I'm speaking from not only firsthand experience, I'm talking from I've actually bled because of some of these things. So let's keep going. So we've only talked about the engine at this point, but too much nitrous, especially if you hit nitrous down low too hard, can explode things like rear ends and transmissions as well. Nitrous is a right now instant torque hit. Now, nitrous, the technology for nitrous oxide is literally over 100 years old. This is something that was run quite a bit in airplanes. Contrary to popular belief, it wasn't just the Germans that were running nitrous in airplanes, but this was a known thing for years and years and years and years. So it's known how to make this stuff work. The big issue is that guys will get greedy with it. And yes, too much nitrous oxide will eventually blow up anything. There is not really a good go-to when it comes to a like, what is the formula, right? A lot of guys would say that half the engine's horsepower is about the highest you want to go. Those are pretty intrepid folks. I would say, you know, you're good with about a quarter of whatever that engine makes. You can usually get away with that with a good nitrous setup and a good tune. Guys, thank you. Cleaver, man, I appreciate that very much. Brother, thank you so much for the contribution, my man. Truly humbling, guys. I really appreciate this a ton. Thank you all so very much. Wow. But thank you guys very much. God, I hope I don't miss anybody here. Oh man, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. All you guys, but thank you very much. Let's see. Sorry about that. And then also asking, can you install nitrous without ever using it? Yeah, I mean, you could just never fill the bottles and have it back there just as a showpiece. And a lot of guys do that. A lot of guys used to do that back in the day, especially with import scenes and things like that. You would just have the bottle back there with some line and things like that. But yeah, you can have it back there and never use it, but just don't run around with the bottle filled all the time. Not a good idea. Dave Soto saying Lakewood front 9010s and rear 5050s with Carlisle springs, drag springs. That would definitely get the job done, no doubt. Cleaver saying, I just don't want to go and buy a new Hellcat, and then a few months later I see a 1,000 horsepower hybrid Hellcat or something. You know, I don't really see that being the case. And realistically, what can you do with it anyway? And let's be real, guys. I mean, the 392 represents the pinnacle of usable power when it comes to these Mopars. You know, a 392 with a drag pack, or rather a 392 with a good drag radial, stock, it will absolutely put a hurting on a lot of cars from a dig, stoplight to stoplight drags type thing. That's really where that car is going to shine. And when you start to throw just more power at it, which is what the Hellcat seems to do in a big way, you lose a lot of the versatility. You lose the ability to play with the car on the street, which is what makes those cars so much fun, you know, is just to be able to play with them. That's where the 392 comes into play. You start getting into big horsepower numbers after the 392, and you find out pretty quickly that first gear, second gear, even third gear starts to become useless. Tire technology, regardless of how good it is, can't keep up with the power production. And so the car gets a little bit skittish. Call it exciting to drive, and when you might not necessarily want it to be exciting to drive. So there's that to consider as well. But overall, I would say that, yeah, you'd be good either way you go. And don't forget, the Hellcat is still and will for a very long time be the yardstick that every other hot rod basically is going to be tested against, especially at the drag strip. You put a Hellcat on a tire, and if your car beats it, it's a fast car. And if it's close to it, man, it's still a fast car. So that's the way I see it. Oh, Cleaver's saying, Yarmy, yeah, the Trinity is good, does have that 93 option. Speed Shop straight in saying from Cleaver Enterprise, best of both worlds, faux show. Dodge is changing the platform and body style Hellcat. Anything new from Dodge? Lost it. But yeah, we'll see. Like I say, I've heard both, to be honest with you. And you know, when you start getting a bunch of conflicting stories, you just kind of have to go with what you hope you know. And, you know, like I say, I've heard both, and they're both pretty plausible. Haha's checking in and saying, first time I joined your stream in a long time, and I see third gen Camaro. What happened to the Fox body? The Fox body's still sitting in the garage. Third gen is my wife's car, and I love driving that thing. It's a Rally Sport with a 305. TBI car. But nope, Foxy will be going to the shop to get a new clutch and flywheel because this guy ain't doing it on the ground. I've done several of those things on the ground and done a lot more in the air, and I'm going to let somebody that does that for a living do that. Support the local economy, if you will. CJ's checking in saying, hey, B-Mason, what's up, brother? How's it going? It's going well, man. Hope it's going well for you, too. Chris saying, well, nitrous is safe if done right, in my opinion, and it is very safe if it's done right. Just like boosting can damage your engine, that's absolutely 100% correct. And just remember, you know, it's only as safe and it's only as good as the equipment that you use and the person that you have tuning it. Just remember this. The Achilles heel for a nitrous setup, regardless of how sophisticated or unsophisticated it is, will always be your solenoids. Guys, if you're planning on running nitrous oxide, number one, I highly recommend a wet kit, meaning that you're going to be injecting fuel and nitrous. I highly recommend running a separate fuel system. It's not as complicated as it sounds, and you can control the fuel that is getting thrown in there with your nitrous oxide, which is a big deal. But the big deal here is that every year you need to be replacing your solenoids. They do go bad. They can go bad. I've had over and over and over and over and over and over and over. I'm trying to count the number of times I've had a nitrous solenoid fail on me on the dyno. This can be, you know, an NA setup nitrous kit, Hellcat setup nitrous, supercharged with nitrous, the whole bit, you name it. The one creepy thing is that when those cars sit, when those solenoids sit, there is a level of deterioration that can take place. And if you have a fuel solenoid that does not fire, you are then pumping the thing full of nitrous oxide with nothing else to burn, and with a ton of heat being generated, it will eat through a piston, cause a whole bunch of problems. You're gonna have a bad time. If your nitrous solenoid doesn't fire and you've got a fairly decent shot, say a 200 shot, and you're only dumping fuel into the combustion chamber, well, you can wash out the cylinders, which probably won't be that bad. You might catch it, you might not. But you can run the risk of hydrolocking the thing if you've got that much fuel going into it. Now, the Hemis, be kind of tough to hydrolock a Hemi, but any wedge motor you can definitely do too. So I'll just tell you this. You don't want either one of those scenarios to happen. They can both end up in catastrophic land, and you don't want that. By the way, far too much fuel can potentially bend a rod, so there's that to consider. Cleaver, thanks again, man. I do appreciate it, buddy. Thank you, Armir. Appreciate it, bud. White Knuckle saying, looks like the challenge is working, B. Your PCM is unlocked by HP. Can you use it? Can you use it to tune via Diablo, or does each company lock theirs to a specific platform? So here's the thing. It used to be you could use them. I mean, an unlocked computer was an unlocked computer, and I think that it's still that way. With the only difference being the 18 and ups, if you use somebody's smart cable or pass through, I think you have to still use that company's pass through, maybe, but I don't know. It used to be if it was unlocked, and you could use anything in there. I don't think that that's changed, but I would fact check that for sure. Twan's asking, how do you feel about twin turbo forged 6.4s? I like the idea behind it. Packaging is a little bit of a pain in the ass. But I like the idea of it. The only downside to it, again, not only is packaging, but some of the complexity of it. Now, that being said, turbos are fantastic. I mean, my thought on turbos is that they're the ultimate cheat code. And I mean, they will maintain manifold pressure regardless of the DA, meaning regardless of altitude, up until the point where you just literally run out of compressor. If you can get away with it, if you are cool with the expense, of going with the twin turbo setup, then it is and will be a significantly more efficient way of putting boost into that car than, you know, something like a Pro Charger. Now, that being said, the Pro Charger is still really good, and, you know, boost number for boost number, I think the percent difference between the two is around 6, maybe 7% at the most, but it's typically between 4 and 5% between a centrifugal supercharger and a turbo. Fuel quality all being the same and everything else. So just take that with a grain of salt. You've got, let's say 5%, just for the sake of argument here. Boost for boost, turbo for turbo versus a centrifugal like a Pro Charger. If you live at a high altitude, that the higher the altitude that you live at, the greater the difference in percentage will be, because you will need to spin the supercharger faster to maintain, or to achieve, I should say, the same manifold pressure. In other words, boost pressure. You're trying to get to 10 pounds of boost, right? Turbos will just keep making boost, again, until you literally run out of compressor capability. In other words, that car can be sitting at 14,000 feet above sea level, and if you've got enough turbo, it'll still make 10 pounds of boost. You'll just be hanging the thing on a bunch of wastegates to keep it from blowing up if you want to maintain 10 pounds of boost. Whereas a supercharger, the higher you pulley it, the higher the parasitic drag will be. So that's why, again, if you live at a high altitude, turbos are now your best friend, and supercharging can be a little bit less effective, but still very effective in terms of making more power. 1-2-Low's asking, what is a fair price for a cam and headers install for a Scat Pack? Depends on where you live, depends on your shop's reputation, and how much experience they have with Hemi stuff, Mopar in general. But I'll put it to you like this. It is not uncommon to find yourself spending roughly $5,000 on on a cam, throttle body, intake, headers, things like that, the tuning that's going to be involved in that, injectors potentially. You're going to be looking to spend a pretty decent amount of money, and a lot of that's going to be in the a lot of that's going to be found in the labor, because you have to remove the heads to get to the cam. It's kind of a pain. So I don't mean to scare you, but again, it depends on your labor rate too. I mean, if you live in an area where you're spending $60 an hour on labor, then it's going to be far less than an area where you're spending, say $100 an hour in labor. So, and those are two known kind of mechanic values. So, Albert, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that, buddy. Saying thank you for the advice. Narrowed it down to True Luck and Maestros. Is it worth dropping a 410 and a daily driver New Edge auto? I jump to 392 when I want power. I probably wouldn't. I mean, it's just 410s, no. 373s, yeah, absolutely. But even those can get a little bit buzzy. If you're dailying this thing, I used to use New Edges as my work cars. And I usually stuck with 355s. They worked great on the highway. They were still plenty peppy. And I really wasn't taking them to the drag strip that much, so I really didn't care what they ran. I just enjoyed driving the thing. But on the freeway, I do like a 355. Some guys will argue that even a 355 is a little bit too aggressive, but for a daily, I would say that is about as aggressive as I would go with that platform. Let's see. Oh, yeah, True Luck and Maestros. Maestros is pretty good stuff. I've got one of my technical guys loves Maestros. But thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate that. Isaac's asking, hey, bro, put in Diablo Sport and got long tube headers and catless mids, and my car is throwing a bunch of codes. Say I try to cold start my car as well and my alarm goes off. Is there any fix to it? It sounds like something else is going on in there, bud. you would have to post up what the codes are, but it sounds to me like something happened. I don't know what in the world would cause the alarm to be going off, because that's an STKR issue. That's not that has nothing to do with your tune. Man, I don't know. I think what I would do is I would put everything back to stock and send that thing back and find out what exactly happened there, because I cannot imagine ever having a situation where you'd load a tune and your alarm would freak out, because you're not messing with that. So there's got to be something else going on in there. Chris is asking, hey, B, should I get for my 6.1 Hemi Challenger a 15.5 Kirky race seat or a 17.5 race seat? By the way, I'm 6 feet tall. Not really being super familiar with all the Kirky seats. I would say check them out. I think the 17.5 might be better for you, wouldn't it? Is the 17.5 I think the 17.5 is isn't that the more padded one? I can't remember now. Golly. It's been a while since I've even looked at the Kirky seats. Which one was I? I was looking at, I think I was looking at the 15.5 for mine, if I remember correctly. What the hell was I doing? Does one of them recline? Damn it, now I can't remember. I think I overthought that. I think one of them does and the other one doesn't recline. Am I thinking about that the right way? White Knuckle saying, thumbs up, folks. Yeah. Logan saying, I'm so used to what my car has already. What can I do to wake up a stock 09 RT57 M6 without breaking the bank? I'll tell you what, this is something that Sean E. really likes, and I've liked these things for a long time for the European cars that I've had and that I've played around with. Get yourself a pedal commander. You know, it's one of those things where it's going to make the car more responsive. And for a manual car, Sean drag raced his M6 392 quite a bit. And he really did like his pedal commander. I've had pedal commanders in my E63. I put a pedal commander in pretty much every one of this buddy of mine, every one of his European cars. I've always liked them quite a bit. And to be honest with you, I really do feel like that parameter, that type of modification, you know, like you've got all the gadgets and gizmos in the Uconnect and all of that, all these different driving modes and such. I really do feel like driver adjustable throttle control should be part of that. So that's the reason why I like the pedal commander so much. Oh, Dave saying, talking about gears, I had 390s in mine. It was shifting too quickly before the 60 foot. I had to go back to my 309. Yeah, 390s can be real aggressive. I like, for the NAG 1 cars, I've driven both. I like the 373s, 370 gears for NAG 1 cars. And 309 is good enough for the 8 speeds. The 390 gear in an 8 speed would be brutal. Well, I say that. So the trucks use 3.92 ratios for the 8 speeds, and they run a pretty short tire. So I say that, and I've seen them 60 foot like crazy. So there is that. Oh, Dave's saying, whatever your waist size is, divide it in half for a Kirky, get the 17.5. You're absolutely going to want the 17.5. Quick Brick saying, got to hit the rack, buddy. Catch a manata. Give me a shout in the morning, brother. Logan saying, awesome, sir. Thank you. Very happy to. Cleaver saying, God bless. Till the next. Thank you, sir, brother. Good seeing you, man. Thank you for hanging out with us. Appreciate it, too. Thank you for the contribution to you and Quick Brick and everybody. Thank you all very much for hanging out. Especially with those contributions. But thank you all very much. Isaac's saying, I'm getting active fuel loop codes and this P0330 plus a code saying all my OBD2 sensor codes, which is obvious with no cats. Yeah, those are going to be some of those might be fairly normal, but the alarm thing is what scares me. I don't see any reason why that would be going off. That's one of the reasons why I would probably take a look at switching it back to stock. Ooh, wow, guys, I just realized we are coming up on 2.5 hours. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun. Guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for hanging out with me tonight, making this channel so much fun. And, oh, wait, here we go. Dave got a question that I will absolutely need to answer. Have you turned off the torque management on the what? On the scalp packs, and how hard do they, scat packs, I think is what he's trying to say. On those scalp packs, and how hard do they hit? So I've actually track tested this. I took my car, which was a 2016 SRT 392, and I tested it at the drag strip with full torque management on, with partial torque management in play, internal, partial torque management in play, external, and with zero torque management. The car really didn't go any quicker. Now, to answer the question directly, the zero torque management was the fastest pass of the night, followed by external only torque management. But I will tell you this, it was by hundredths of a second. So it was basically the same. And I don't recommend running zero torque management, or zero torque management in any of the Dodge stuff, because number one, it doesn't hurt it to have some torque management in play, and it actually helps the quickness of the shifting. The zero torque management hit was later in the night, and the DA had dropped a little bit, so I think there was some of that to account for that quicker time. So again, you know, don't kill torque management in your tune. At least leave external torque management on. Your pocketbook may thank me for that. And Sovereign saying, great show, Mason. Thank you all. Thank you very much for the kind words. And guys, with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Again, thank each and every one of y'all for hanging out with me. Love each and every one of you guys. Please stay safe out there. Keep wearing your mask, if not for yourself, then for others. If you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Guys, have a fantastic new year. Please stay safe out there. Don't do anything crazy. Try not to do anything too nuts. And we will catch you guys on the next one. And until then, that's a wrap. Adios.